Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be going over how you can actually paint with your Crayola markers. So after doing some error and try here on this, or trial and error I should say, on this first one, I realized that my Prisma markers actually did not create this like water effect with the ink. So that's a really important tip. So if you are an artist and you have Prismacolor markers, or maybe even some higher end markers, they probably won't work as well as the Crayola washable markers or just a regular Crayola marker, okay? So just something to keep in mind when doing this project, that the simple markers that you can really pick up at any store are going to be the best ones to use for this. So I am going to kind of do some experimentation here with you all today. I'm going to redo these, and then I'm actually going to move to some other things and using some other like household items that you can find around the house in case you don't have a paintbrush. So the first one I did, I actually just drew a line with my marker, and then I put my paintbrush over top, and then it kind of did this nice bleeding effect. So I'm going to take my marker and do a little design here. Just a little bit of some interesting line work. Kind of looks like an S. Okay, so I'm gonna take my clear water in my cup, and I'm just going to kind of tap off some of the water, and then I'm just gonna take my paintbrush and paint directly over top of it. So you can see the ink starts to spread. Now what's really cool about this is because of the water, you really don't know what's going to be happening with the ink and where it's going to go, or how the outcome is going to look after. So it's kind of fun in that way that it's experimental. It's hard to control the outcome, so don't be upset if it ruins a design or something doesn't turn out the way that you would like it to. That's the fun in it, okay? The next one is going to be to actually blend two different colors together. So if I take purple, I'm going to kind of do a hatching here where I keep all my lines close together, and then I start to kind of spread them out. Those of you that have taken art before are probably familiar with this. And then I'm going to take red, and I'm going to do the same thing, but from the other side. I'm going to keep all my lines together. My marker's drying out. And then I'm going to start to cross hatch over top. Or hatch over top, I'm sorry, not cross hatch. Cross hatching is when you actually would cross them in a cross, making an actual cross shape on top. So then again, I'm going to take my paintbrush with water, and I'm just going to start from one side and kind of move down into the red. So I can get kind of like a burgundy in the middle. Now to get rid of some of the lines, I think I'm just going to take my water and kind of do some circle motions to kind of help blend that a little bit. So pretty cool. So now I have kind of like this burgundy color in the middle. Now you see these little things here. This is because my paper got too wet. So it's starting to pull up some of the fabric from the paper. So you just want to be really careful that you don't use too much water, because then you'll have this on your paper, and if you do way too much water, you're going to actually create a hole into your paper. So be very mindful. I would also recommend putting like an extra sheet of paper underneath the one that you're working on so it's not bleeding through like I did here. Okay. So just kind of like a little helpful tip. Also, you want to be smart about how you are putting the water down first after you make your mark with your marker. It's important that you're adding the water after because you don't want to take your marker and then dip it on top of the water because it's going to dry out your marker, which is probably what happened in this one. So make sure that you are putting the marker down first, then putting water on top, not the other way around, because then you're going to ruin your markers and you won't be able to use them anymore. The next one I did was kind of just mixing to make another color. So I took a red and a yellow, which are two primary colors, and mixed them together to create an orange. So I first did one color and then I kind of slightly overlapped the two, but I feel like you could probably just overlap them and then add water on top and it would still do something similar. You can already tell it's turning a little bit orange there. So I'm going to rinse my brush out because I noticed I started to get some that purple on there. So again, I'm dipping my brush into my cup and then I'm just going to kind of tap on the edge to make sure I'm not having too much water there. And then I'm just going to use kind of like a circle motion to blend the colors together. Oh, got a little splatter there. That's all right. It's not always going to turn out the way you want it to. That's the fun in it. All right, so that's how you can blend the colors to create another color. So this one's kind of more of like a gradient, going from one color to making one color to another color and so on. And this here is really just kind of overlapping them to make a totally different color. Here I wanted to experiment if I could actually just paint with the ink that I took from my color. This way, you know, I don't have to actually draw a line. Let's say I wanted to make a color first and then I wanted to use that in my work, but I didn't want to have like these dots. So what I mean by that is I kind of took a color and I just kind of laid down that color in an area so you could like use a separate sheet of your sketchbook paper as maybe like a painting palette. And you could kind of mix or put down your marker colors on that palette, like let's call it a palette. And then you would just add your water here to kind of get it nice and to get that ink onto your brush. And then you can move to your actual painting or your actual piece of work. And then you can start to paint with the lines from the color instead of actually having like a dot of this color on your page. So hopefully that makes sense. You could also probably do like a dry brush technique, which means you take all the water off of your brush so that you don't have such a nice flowing bristle, but it's kind of like it breaks up a little bit. So pick up some of that. And then see how it starts to kind of fade here and the brushes start to break apart. That's dry brushing. So let me see if I can get that closer. Okay, now I'm going to jump to doing kind of like a gradient. So a gradient is just going from a dark to light. And so the best way to do that is to actually start at one point. Let's see, what color do I want? you're gonna start at the top by keeping all of your lines really close together, just like we were when we were creating this one. And then you're gonna do hatching, so you're just gonna kind of start to separate your lines a little bit. Okay. And then you'll take your paintbrush, dip it into your water, tap it on the edge of your cup. So dip, tap. And then you're gonna start at the top, going horizontally, which means left to right. And you're just gonna keep doing that, going all the way down to create your gradient. And you can start to see how I get a dark to a light shade, okay? If you want your lines gone, I would actually suggest doing just one block like this, and then getting your water, tapping, and then horizontally left to right, and then just keep going, oh, come on, and just keep going down and down till it starts to get lighter. I actually like this way a little bit better, even though I can still see my lines. I'm not getting such a good gradient here. But it's all about experimenting, right? All right, so now I'm gonna try to experiment. I brought in a cotton ball, Q-tip, and toilet paper. So we're gonna see how painting with those can help us. So I'm going to take my Q-tip, dip it into the water, and I'm just going to dip it so that the Q-tip just hits the top of the water, because I don't want the whole thing to be drenched, because again, we want to limit the amount of water we're putting on the paper so that our craftsmanship is good. We're not getting rips or tears in it because of the water. So it looks like so far that I have a little bit more control using a Q-tip, probably because it's smaller and I don't have a lot of bristles. We can see that this one kind of really bled and expanded, as here we really can see our marker line still, which is really nice. And you can get Q-tips and cotton balls from the dollar store, which is fantastic. So next, I'm going to keep trying this, because now that I have a green on my Q-tip, I'm really interested to know how this is going to work. So I'm going to grab a little bit more water, just touch it lightly on the surface. Not going to dip it all the way in, because I want a little bit of water at a time. So it looks like the green kind of mixed with the purple. It's not that noticeable, but I can see it a little bit. So the Q-tip is really cool too, because I could probably use this to paint with, like I did here with the paintbrush. So I could end up taking this and doing, you know, designs here. So that is cool. All right, let's see the Q-tip. Or I mean the cotton ball, sorry. So again, I'm just gonna touch the cotton ball to the surface of my water. I don't wanna dip the whole thing and drench it into water. That's not gonna probably look that great. So dipping, I think, you know what, yep, I'm gonna squeeze it a little bit on the edge here. So I can already tell I've got a lot of water in here. So the cotton balls are much wider, so you're definitely not going to have as much control as you would maybe with a Q-tip or a paintbrush. But it does help to color. I mean, this is really helpful if I want to color like an entire background, like one color, or maybe like mix it colors like I did here. I could see that being really helpful. So let me try. The purple. And I'm not going to dip this again because I can already feel that there's still a lot of water in this. So this is pretty neat because it's kind of starting to create like a texture here when I start kind of rubbing into the paper. I really actually enjoy that. I think that could be really fun to work in somehow. I definitely wasn't expecting that. So very cool. All right, so now I'm going to try toilet paper. And the thing with toilet paper is, you know, you can kind of maneuver it into a way that you want it to, which is kind of fun. So, all right. And again, I'm just going to top the surface. I'm not going to dip the entire thing, and I'm actually going to kind of press and squeeze on the edge of my cup. Because again, you really don't want a lot of water. I can't stress that enough. All right, and then I'm just going to kind of follow my line. So again, really cool. The toilet paper kind of does what the Q-tip did here when I press into the paper. It kind of rubs the ink off and starts to create an interesting texture on the paper. It's also creating kind of like a green, which is interesting. So I don't know if that's maybe just the color I chose or another, or because of this. So I'm going to try a second color and see if it does the same thing. So it doesn't do the same thing. So it must have just been my marker color.